Hello, I'm Edgar Sessian. Francis Levy and I are co-directors of the center. Francis should be appearing anytime soon. He's back from a trip out of the city. Just a couple of announcements. The art that is on the wall is at its last breath. It will be taken down tomorrow, so those of you who haven't seen it have a last chance to see it today after the program. We have a roundtable coming up next week on social networking that is being moderated by, there's a social networking happening there. That is moderated by David Kirkpatrick, who has just written a book on Facebook. Today's program was proposed to us by Jane Ira Bloom, whom, as you know, has been here a number of times. Jane is not only a highly accomplished musician and composer, she is also a kind of a neuroscientist in the sense that she has tremendous amount of interest in the way the body and the brain relate to each other and interact with each other. And so today I think we are going to see and hear the way she looks at things and hears things. So there, Jane, go ahead.
the first time we've ever had dance in the space? Oh my. I have to take a moment to introduce the most astonishing artists who are with us this evening. If you've gotten the form, I can't even go through the list of all their many, many extraordinary accomplishments. Please welcome from right from Europe, from the Merce Cunningham Company, Andrea Weber. This woman on my right probably needs no introduction at all. Please welcome the legendary Carmen de Lavallade. In our team, Aaron Shafer-Haiss is joining us on percussion. In the world of jazz, there is no other, the inimitable Rufus Reid on bass. So Ed misstates the situation a little differently than I had imagined. This is a conversation that I thought we would have among the musicians and the dancers, both in terms of what we do, dancing and playing, and talking a little bit about how movement impacts our work as musicians, and certainly how music impacts what goes on in the minds of dancers. And perhaps for the first time as they move, they can talk to you what goes on in their minds as they play. Maybe just to start the ball rolling a little bit, I should announce we performed a piece called Ice Dancing, which was a score that from a piece that I was honored to do with my quartet with Carmen de Lavallade at the New York City Center's Fall for Dance. So she and I knew that piece a little bit, but Andrea never heard it before, and neither had Aaron. What you saw here from the start was dancers taking a moment and improvising, and I'm going to let you guys take it from there. Where's the mics?
Oops. I'll roll it over to you. Oh boy, you guys have to start. Improvise. When I first, I was trained in Los Angeles, California by a wonderful man named Lester Horton. And we did a lot. My first time I started, he had improvised classes and whatnot. I was terrible. Hated it. Because I didn't know what to do. You know, I was very young at the time. But as time went on, and I met incredible musicians through my life, both concert, jazz, and whatever. And I learned, and particularly from my husband, Jeffrey Holder, he's a great improviser. And I learned how to relax and not take it so seriously. And that way your mind is free to roam. And anything you do is right. There's nothing wrong, really. But I happen to be a music freak. And sound, I love sound. So when I'm improvising, it's really what the sound is saying to me. And I do that with my dance. I had some friends say they just move, or they do the movement, and they don't hear the music. I don't get the connection, but for me, the movement comes out of the sound, even when there is no sound. Even when there is silence, there is music, because space is music for me, or it's in my head, whatever. And I was fortunate enough, thanks to Lester, to hear all kinds of music from all over the world. Nothing was sacred, and he taught us all kinds of from gamelan. Concert music, and then we went and worked at one time with Duke Ellington and Stan Kenton and all that in the 50s. And this was very unusual, particularly for concert people. And poor Lester was razzed about it because they thought that was selling out. And they thought he was selling out. He was way ahead of everybody, you see, because years later, look what's happening now. That so if you want to call it pop music, becomes concert, because it has some beautiful things to say too, you know. So now you can draw from anything that you want, which is really lovely for the young people, because they can do anything. They will not be razzed upon to say you can't do this and you can't do that. But Andrea, what was your?
My experience in improv is limited. I have a very technical, classical history. My background is mostly trained and very technical, and I have a technical job. I'm with Merce Cunningham. We have steps. So my experience with it is limited, but I have always loved to dance, and I've always danced by myself, which is improv. And I think that you're absolutely right that it is about relaxing, just finding the space to relax. And at school, I had a contact improv class, which is, more than one person improvising at a time, and I hadn't really had any experience improvising at all up until that point in a class setting. So it was extremely stressful to not only improv, but improv with somebody else. And you had to relax. So we would sit in a circle like this and jump into the circle, 2 people at a time, and then you had to go in and replace somebody else and improv with them, and then you would be replaced. And it was shocking who you would be connected to and who you wouldn't be connected to. And you could only find that connection by relaxing and being in it completely. And so I'm intrigued, and I love it, and I love these opportunities. Do I know what I'm doing? Well, I guess it's not really about that. So, but anyway, I just say have fun. And I think that there are moments that maybe work. But that's I guess the way it is with everything, right? So I don't know.
When you're with the company, Andrea, you mentioned to me that Merce, sometimes you're surprised by the music. You only get it at the last minute.
That is an element I love about Merce's work.
This is interesting, yeah.
Yeah, so Merce's work, chants, procedure, the music is on top, music sound. Some people even call it noise. But we don't hear the music until we're performing. And oftentimes, especially with the premiere, we've never heard it until probably dress rehearsal, and it's probably not in the complete version. Our musicians, we rehearse a show. Am I talking into this, right? Okay, yeah. Okay. We will rehearse a show, and they'll be rehearsing music to a different piece while we're rehearsing one piece. We rehearse in silence in the studio. So when we're in it, when we're in a performance, we each have a very individual experience and journey with it. Some people don't listen to the music at all. I happen to be one person who I do feel like I am connected to music. I have a core desire to have that be part of my experience. So I hear it, and even if it's cage and it's a piano note, but yeah, we do the work, we do our steps, we do our rhythms, and it's very rhythmical work, and the music is on top of that. So yeah. I
remember you told me, we talked about this, and I remember you said something, even though the music was unexpected to you, that I asked you, I said, didn't that feel strange? And you said no, because the minute you hear it, it transforms you internally, and so in your movement, no matter what. And
I can't say that for all of the company members, but that's absolutely my experience. And there are pieces where I think the music, sound, whatever, drives the piece. So it's very different to rehearse it and then do it in performance. For instance, sound dance, this one piece is just, the sound bounces around the theater, and we rehearse it in silence, and it's just go, 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 go. And I just don't think it's as good without the sound. So anyway, yeah, it's a amazing experience to
very,
to
very
do
different.
It's a conversation. It's really, that's what I love about jazz musicians. That's what I learned, is that it's a conversation. For me, I don't know what you feel like when you're bouncing off the other people. Is it or isn't? I don't know.
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
what I get the feeling
absolutely.
that's
it's
what
a conversation, mainly because I can play by myself, and I don't need anybody else. But once that one person comes into the view, then I'm compelled to have a conversation. because it's just like having a conversation with people and they're not listening to you.
Have you ever wanted to move, Rufus? A bass player has to be static to play the instrument. Can you ever remember a moment in any performance you've ever given that you wished that you didn't have to stand next to that bass and that you could move? Like, you know, horn players, we can do, you know, for wireless, we can do anything, but he's got this.
Well, I move. There are players who are like statues, but I mean, I still try to conserve my energies to what I'm doing, but I have to move. I mean, because with the space. I had a student who used to watch me like a hawk, and he says, "Why do you do that with your foot?" And I said, "I do." You know? Because once I get in a zone, you don't know what you do. You know, and I think that's it becomes an oscillating thing. But I have to move.
Play just for fun. Play a phrase where you're like a statue, just a phrase or something, where you're like a statue or something, and then play it again the way you like to play.
Wow. Okay. I think one of the things that make you move. Music is an expression, so I cannot, if I'm going to play something very, for me to do this, it doesn't make sense. I can't do that. I mean, there's a thing that people talk about being connected to the instrument. Literally connected to the instrument, so you're not. So basically, this is a condiment of what's happening in my brain to respond to. And I actually, most of you don't know this, but I've been playing with this woman for several years, and I never know what she's going to do. And it's always something of new and fresh, and yet, because that's why she calls me, is because she knows I'm open to it. So that's also why we do the things that we do, because, and I make a point to do, at least make myself known that I'm open for it, and sometimes it's difficult, but that has nothing to do with it. You try to get involved in.
He says an interesting thing about our instruments being extensions of our bodies. Neuroscience tells us that this can happen, that we can feel as if this is part of our body or whatever, or you're so connected to it.
Oh, I remember once I performed, I do a little piece of the creation that James Weldon Johnson's. It's a speaking piece and moving, and I performed it with the Boston Pops, 80-piece orchestra. The Holtz the Planets, the Venus section, and you're standing in front of the orchestra. You're talking about an extension. I was high for 3 days. I kid you not, literally, because the sound just kind of goes right through your body, and you have no problem being supported. You know, movement out the window. I don't know what, but it just took you. It's like it just supported you and just took you where it wanted to take you. It was one of the most exciting things is to be in front and performing in front of a symphony orchestra. The sound is unbelievable. So, you know, extension, well, I guess I've always felt like that about movement. I know when we worked together for the first time, it was like duct water, you know, no problem. And with Rufus. And Yale Repertory, thank you, Joe Griffo, that's when I really learned about improvising and letting go, because dancers, you're in the army. It's being in the army. It's military. Sorry, but you know it's really that, because it's hard. It's a hard life, and you've got a huge instrument to train. But the actors are a little freer, and they're just they're performing about life, because the people that they play are real people. So they're more open, I found, and that relaxed me a lot. That relaxes
Yeah.
me a lot. Yeah.
Should we play some more music?
Yeah.
Well, let's do this is a piece called Miro, and Andrea has never heard this before. Here, you come in? Okay. Here we go. From nothing. It occurred to me as we were playing, from a musical point of view, I don't know about you guys, but I've always been a visual thinker. So even as I'm conceptualizing some of the musical phrases, I'm feeling them in a physical, visual way in some sense. I don't know why. I'm not a synesthesia person, but to play a phrase that has a curvaceous thrust to it, my body does it or feels it. I don't know why. It was always just intuitive. And again, we should ask the musicians this too, but the complexity of both having your own internal relationship to movement and then visually to watch a dancer while you're playing, what that also changes and makes you do or want to do. I mean, do you guys watch?
Oh yeah, I think it's hard to not watch if you're playing percussion, because just the physicality of the instrument in itself, it's almost like you're dancing behind the instrument, and so it's like I'm moving with them, and instead of I mean, in a way, if you watch Andrea on the last one, it's like you could hear her feet hitting the floor and hear the rhythms that she creates, and then the rhythms that she creates with her hands in the air, and all that. It's kind of, I'm basically doing the same thing, except for I have instruments in front of myself. So, you know, I find myself like in the first piece I was watching Carmen,
finding river in the
moving,
body,
and she was dipping, and I was kind of moving with her, and yeah, I mean, it kind of it's the nature of the instrument as well.
Well, for me, it's a twofold, because I'm still trying to be conscious of what I'm playing, although nothing is written. But I'm watching the bigger movements, like the one where she had the leg did all that, and to me, something that actually caresses that movement. And yet, if you always do something all the time, then it doesn't work either. So when do you do it? When do you not do it? I don't know. We could do this whole program again the next hour, and it will never be the same. I think this is one of the things that I live for when I play jazz, and I get more fulfillment with people who are trying to do the same thing, so we don't, because I do know sometimes as an improviser, we only want the good stuff to come out. So we'll try to do what we did yesterday because we got a standing ovation yesterday. And that doesn't work as much as one might want that to work, but actually it hurts when you try to make that work. What comes back to you is pretty painful. So both musically and mentally frustrating. So I don't do that. I just cannot do that. So, and I think if we were to do this every day, there would still be a different thing that happens, although it would still be not, we could not put it on the, it wouldn't be the same. It just wouldn't, it would be the same people in the same space, but what we did would be totally different. And I think because we all try for sure not to do that as part of it. At least that's what how
You
I
mentioned
work.
an interesting thing about negative space, silence. Carmen said something about silence. He said something about not playing. That in the course of improvisation, sometimes the hardest thing to do is to know when not to play.
Yeah, well, most people don't they always want to be playing, so they want people to know that they're hip.
Well, from the dancer's point of view, though, the way I think about the silence is that the negative space around you is charged. It is not negative in any sense. It's positive, and I think
it's filled. It's already full.
Yeah.
It's already full. There's no such thing as silence. Not even in spaces there's silence.
Ooh, good segue, Carmen.
Good segue.
Good segue.
Good segue. There's always something humming.
I think we'll.
Want to try?
Yeah, I think we should. We're going to perform a piece called "Most Distant Galaxy," which I'm so honored to play for you. It was a commissioned piece for NASA, but now will be put to dance spontaneously and feature the bassist who I performed and recorded this with, Rufus Reid on bass. So.
Something like that.
What were you doing? You were on the chair. The danger of outer space, the danger on the chair.
Should I keep going or not? Should I keep going or not?
Oh, well, where are we? We're in outer space. This is the moment where, I don't know if dancers experience this, but the moment after performing, often your head is a little, not in a verbal place. So it's a little difficult for us to perform with this level of intensity and then come back and talk to you all about what the heck we're doing.
The moment of creation. The moment of creation.
It's the moment. You know what's interesting is when we started this performance, when the dancers were talking, you know, sitting in the chairs, they couldn't help but move. Do you remember when they first started? They were swiveling. Now that I've made you conscious of it, you won't do it, right? But I felt like a dance had already begun. These guys don't even, I mean, it's an unconscious thing. I mean, they must move. But from our point of view, whether it's from a rhythmic point of view or a timbral point of view or a melodic point of view, the minute I saw that, I felt music. I feel music. Yeah? Yeah, okay.
Which one?
I'm going to do this. I'm going to take a second, and I'm going to unplug for a minute because and stick this in my pocket. And that was a piece called Most Distant Galaxy. Most Distant Galaxy, yeah. I think what I'm going to do now is just a small excerpt, an example of some work that Carmen and I have done with some very close music and dance contact.
Some audio because we're recording this.
Oh, okay. Well.
Do you want to hold that? Or?
No.
This is about as minimal as we like to get, because you don't have to dance all the time. But it's a matter of, well, I'm not going to say.
She refused it.
for a musician, that's about as dangerous as it gets.
Yeah.
To move and to move and to play at the same time. It's something I've always been interested in, and I'm no way a dancer, but I just feel like in my body that sound has movement. And often, as you've seen in some of the pieces we've played, physical movement actually plays a part inside the music. Maybe one of the things, and I could talk briefly about this, is to play that intimately with a dancer. What goes on musically is simplify. Simplify. My head can't handle playing anything complex. Nonetheless, to do that while we're, actually, there's physical contact between myself and her, and she's got radar in the back of her head. She knows exactly where I am. So there's a trust factor that's extraordinary. But simplification, when doing collaborative work, for me as a musician, I find that I tend to simplify.
Yeah, well, I find everybody's dancing every day. I mean, I can take any kind of position that you have there, and you can add music to it, and it becomes something. It becomes pensive, it becomes, so we don't even know that we're doing it, that we're moving all the time. You put any kind of music to it, and somehow it becomes something else. I don't know, you're never aware of it, but it's true. Oh, you're never aware of it, but it's true. Oh, I hate these things. Anyway, but along with my work, I have text that I speak. And there was one, I just a very short section of it is James Weldon Johnson's The Creation. Actually, my husband started this for the actors at Yale when he was there, and I saw it and I said, I want it, and I got it. So, and I thought it was a time that I wanted to break out instead of just dancing. It just seemed that, been there, done that. I wanted to expand more. I think Lester would have approved. And I wanted to see what would happen if I put movement to it, and one thing led to another. And every time I've done this, it's been with the 80-piece orchestra. It's been with what is it?
The French horn.
French horn. It's been with, and has been with nothing. So it's really rather exciting that to do the piece and not know what happens as far as an improv. So I'm going to give just a very short little improv of this.
The mic, how is they going to hear her with the microphone? No? Okay.
Stepped out on space, and he looked around and he said, I'm lonely. I'll make me a world. Yes. And as far as the eye of God could see, darkness covered everything, blacker than 100 midnights down in a cypress swamp. Then God smiled, and the light broke, and the darkness rolled up on one side, and the light stood shining on the other, and God said, that's good. Yeah. Then God reached out and took the light in his hands, and God rolled the light around in his hands till he made the sun. And he set that sun blazing in the heavens. And the light that was left from making the sun, God gathered it up in a shining ball and flung it against the darkness, spangling the night with the moon and the stars. Then down between the darkness And the light, he hurled the world. And God said, "That's good." There, that's just that far. Different interpretation, different sound, different interpretation, different space, circle. Usually I do it proscenium. So I had to change all that. Now, so, you know, but it changed. It was really nice. I said, I can use that. Funny thing happened in my heyday when the legs were like this and all that. You know, and with the Boston Pops, oh, the legs and the legs. Woo, I was very busy moving. Very busy moving. And it happened, and comes from improvisation. I made a film once, and I had this whole thing coming up and down stairs. 4 hours, up and down stairs, all afternoon. And then another scene when you're up and down a chair for another 4 hours. All right, I got back to New York, and my legs went. And I said, move. They did not move. I'm serious. They would not move. And I had a performance of this the next day in Washington at the Duke Ellington School of the Arts. I was in great pain, and I thought, oh, I'm in trouble. Because I was thinking as a dancer. I said, oh, my leg, I can't get my arm back, and I can't do that. And all of a sudden, I got up there and said, who's going to know it's a solo? Nobody's going to know. And then I realized that it's really about the words. And then something magical happened. I kind of left the movement out, which was enough, and concentrated on the story and the imagery, and then the music came out. And that was in a silence, too. And then something else took. This changed something else. It gave me ideas for something else. So it means that it's going to change every time I do it, no matter what age I am. I'm going to be in a wheelchair, and I'm going to do it. Because I will know what I can do. And it's really about the text and what God is creating there, you see.
How do you speak text, get it in your body, and find the movement that makes it real, you know? And listen to music, you know.
I don't know. It took me a while. When I first started, I was kind of this way. It's like listening to Ella Fitzgerald and all those great jazz singers when they're young. They sing right on the... And then when they got older, they're in between the notes and everything, and they all come out right. You know, and it's something, it gets richer and richer and richer and richer. I think it's because that life takes over and you understand what's going on, you know, and then you can interpret and you're not so afraid to loosen it up a little bit. And this is sort of where I am with this piece. And I don't know. The danger, I think, when you're using text and music and movement is that you want to get it on a meter, and you don't want that. And that's what I learned from the jazz singers when I heard them, particularly Joe Williams, whom I adored, and listening to him sing Later Life. And I learned a lot because he slipped in and out of, it was never on a beat. And so it really freed it up, and it made it that way the words came out more, you know, and it's just support. I don't know, it's something that you play with and something that is different every time I do it, and that's the fun of it. Is that I don't know, but I can hear a sound. I heard something in there, and I heard something there, and I heard something there, and it took me off someplace else, and I held there. I didn't have to say that word right there. I can kind of get, you know.
For musicians, Carmen, when I don't know, you guys have to tell me if you experience this, but when I try to go into a verbal place simultaneously with music, internally, mentally, I fritz. There's something I can't do it.
Yes.
But you can embody, you know, the right brain of dance.
Well, that's years, you know. I mean, one learns over the time. I've been in so many different areas besides dance, you know, and musicals and theater and all kinds of things, you know, sort of. I don't know. It's just that I was very lucky in my life to have all the people that I had in my working with Ellington and working with even Benny Goodman and people like that. Bill Evans, who was wonderful, and people like that. And then working with the, you know, doing the Carmina Buranas and Minotti, you know, all those kind of things. And they just add on to your life, and I used whatever I can get. And all the wonderful actors and directors, and that all that comes into doing this, because then I can free myself and then pick and choose and make it richer. And as I get older, it's going to get richer, and it's going to change.
And she makes it look easy. And she makes it look easy.
Well, that's just relaxing, I suppose. No, you know what it is? I'm not trying to be who I'm not. I'm not trying to be who I was 20 years ago, even 5 years ago, even 5 months ago. I'm a different person now, and other things take over, and I've got to leave that and then use what I have. And that way try to make that richer and explore that area of my life and physically. And so that's and so you sort of change, and I think that's good. I think there's a tendency, particularly when we get on in life, we just kind of, you know, you don't have. That's not true, because we're bodies. We have to move. You have, because we're made that way. We're made that way. Shall I pull?
Yeah.
So what did we want?
Hand over to Andrea, and we'll get again. And then we'll get on. We'll
text, or
we can try a stare thing.
I don't know that I have much to say about that.
You want to do the audience thing?
Yeah, we should do that.
I tell you, yeah.
Let's do the
the
surprise.
Yeah.
The surprise.
The surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think no?
A stare. Yeah.
All right, everybody. We've been working now. Your turn.
It's a little brighter
to
than we
improvise.
rehearsed it, yeah.
You're going to sit. Well, I'll sit in the chair. And I don't care what you do. You have the music, and you can do a finger. Or you can do your head. You can do your shoulder. You can do your feet, or you can sit there and just go like that. I don't care. And you can do. It doesn't matter. Yay! Hey! Hey!
you know, it's about 3:30, so I thought, you know, we played enough, and these guys need to take a breather. Thought we'd open it up for some questions that you might have for anybody here.
I just wanted to observe one thing as I was watching people move. Everyone had huge smiles on their faces when they were moving to the music. I'm going to pass this mic around just so that people who are watching online can hear your questions.
The one thing you really haven't addressed, dancers or musicians, and that is this is an unusual setup where it's so intimate and it's circular and there's no place to hide. And we're here in this bright light. And the thing that I'm interested in is, to what degree does the audience, those watching, our reaction or non-reaction, now or in the past performances you've given, how does that affect you? Are you affected by your awareness of the audience? Would you rather not see them, or when you do see them, does it affect what you do?
There's two different concepts. I have a mic. So, I mean, there are two different concepts. I mean, as a jazz musician playing in a nightclub, we're intimately involved with the people, and you can actually see eyes for the most part. I miss that on the concert stage. I miss that big time. Although this is really interesting for me, but this would not be the same if the lights were just on us. You are part of this presentation. So, I mean, that's really it. If you weren't here, it wouldn't be anywhere as fun. I don't think. I mean, it would be something else, but it wouldn't be what it is with you here. Not for me, and I think, because I watch your faces and your attitudes and sometimes shock or being really elated, sometimes surprised in a good way. To me, that affects us. It certainly does affect us. If we, particularly if I didn't have any of this music at all, then I could really pay even more attention to you, you know. I mean, it's not like I'm reading a lot of stuff, but there are particular things, otherwise it would be different. You know?
If I had a blindfold on, it would be important that you're here. I would sense it anyway. You know, the presence of people. As a performer, you both can address this. That if you're not there, the same thing doesn't happen. And that even if I couldn't visually see you, the feeling that we are here in this community, in this room, and this circle is very cool, actually, because of this. We just came up with the idea of this circular, kind of an extension of how the round tables are usually done, but just a bigger circle. I guess what I'm saying is it's almost unconscious.
It's really an ancient form. I mean, that's the way we all started anyway. You know, and the so-called primitive societies, they still, the circle and the togetherness, because then that's all the vibes kind of come to the center. And then the vibes come centered to us, and that goes out to you. I mean, that's the way I feel about it. I kind of feel that way even in proscenium. If it goes out and comes back. I mean, I think that's what we as performers hope happens. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, I was doing a play once, I can't remember where it was, and somebody went out for the first scene, they came back and said, they're painted on the seats. And that's when it gets a little difficult, because something wasn't happening, you know. And so you really feel it. Sometimes you feel, you can go out and it's like, anybody there? And then sometimes you just feel a warmth that comes. I don't know what it is. It's very mysterious, but it's real. But the circle is really very ancient and very our beginnings. And I think that's one of the reasons why circles are so wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. She wheels over.
I don't know why I feel like I have to stay in the chair, but it's fun. It is an extension, just like the audience. It's why I kept doing it. I've been dancing since I was a little girl, but I I could have done it by myself in a room, but I decided that this is what I wanted to do and share it with the audience and people, and it's important that we do this together. And I do think that everyone's involved, even on a proscenium stage. So, yeah. I mean, sometimes like the audience doesn't like it. I mean, we've been booed with Merce, booed on the Paris Opera stage, booed. Whoa. Wow. But the next piece, it was bravo. And there's this amazing thing of having people so engaged in the work that they're willing to hate it too. You know, I mean, that's better than like nothing, which has happened in Kansas. But anyway, yeah, so I'd rather be in Paris with booze than Kansas with no clapping. And then the lights come up and there are no audience. There's no audience there anymore. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know. I think it's super important, and I love seeing the audience because we get that opportunity sometimes as well. So anyway.
Another question, yeah.
Kind of just a comment on that. I've done improv dance work before, actually in a very similar scenario as this, but in Baltimore, so it wasn't the same thing. And one of the people in the audience, they asked me if I could dance with my eyes closed. And the dynamic of it was insanely different and so interesting, because for me, and I noticed with you too, she has a very like trained structure, right, in your body. And when you close your eyes, even if it feels the same, it looks so different. It's just a really interesting, maybe like on another time you could try it out or something. But and I also had another comment when Carmen, by the way, I love you. you're a goddess. When you were talking about when she asked how you can dance and use words at the same time. And what came to my head is that as a former dancer, or I guess you're never not a dancer, but as a former dancer who is now more into poetry and getting into spoken word, I've noticed that words can almost sound the same as sound in our bodies and feel the same and have the same dynamic. Just as when a word comes to a musician, they translate that into notes. We have a word that comes to us, and we translate that into sound and movement, if that makes sense. So, I don't know, that's just my...
What was that comment?
Thank you. I was very much aware throughout each of the pieces of the conversational element between the musicians and the dancers. However, when Jane and Carmen were very intimately connected and the space was very reduced between you, I was struck by how narrative your movements became. And I was wondering whether you are aware of whether that was something that I was feeling that you were not necessarily feeling, whether you, generally speaking, are aware of a shift of when the movement becomes less abstract and less form-oriented and more narrative, or not.
Yes, it was narrative. It was narrative. It was my own narrative in my head. I mean, she might be thinking something else, and I'm thinking something else. I'm not going to say what, because that takes the fun out of it. I mean, you might have gotten something else out of it. You might have gotten the story. I don't know what. I'm not saying what it was, but that's. I like people to have their own. That's why I like radio. Remember radio? You know, Green Hornet. Everybody had their idea what the Green Hornet and the Lone Ranger looked like. You know, and that's the fun of it, because then your imagination takes over. And well, I'm not going to say, but it was narrative. I happen to like narrative. I mean, I grew up in narrative, and then I've seen it change to more abstract, like Merce, which I like too. But then I can take one and the other. See, I can use one or the other, which is good. But I happen to like to take things of life and just make them a little more focused and not really narrative, but take life a little bit and you know, rather than just plain design. I'm more, I like the narrative better, but that happens to Jane and myself all the time. I think that's why we work so well together. Yes.
Thank you. In the history of dance, we've really seen a lot of stretching, from the history of kabuki to Merce Cunningham to other things that are happening today. And the lines are interdisciplinary, and I notice more and more that there are conceptual artists who are doing performance art, using their bodies differently, and in a space will have the audience participate with them, whether they're in a trans-altered state or whatever. And there is the use of the body in a very different way. I'm not talking about monks still, not like Buddhists or something, but it's a conceptual idea, but it is still using the body. Sometimes it's a narrative, sometimes it's abstract. How do you feel? Have you taken any of that insight? Have you looked at it? Is it legitimate? Is it totally broken into performance art and dance art? Because there is such a merging going on. I don't know.
There's a lot of merging going on. I think that's good. I mean, because when I was growing up, it was a modern dancer, a ballet dancer, an ethnic dancer, whatever that may be. You were in your, and never would you step in somebody else's territory, ever. And now you got the hip hop and the, you know, the crump and the this and the that, and everybody's grabbing everything, and the ballet dancers are, you know, throwing themselves around and doing floor falls, and the modern dancers are doing arabesques and whatnot. And you know, and I think it's really wonderful because it's enriching everything, and that means it doesn't become stale and stagnant. Because now, strangely enough, I go and I see the old ballet things that I have seen, you know, the old chestnuts and those wonderful Sleeping Beauties and whatnot, which you always kind of love to see, and then all of a sudden, they look different. They look dated now for some reason. You know, to like to take them and change them now, and freshen them up or something. Something's got to change, and it's beginning to change. I don't think those will ever change because they're like, you know, they're little precious things that are the past. And but fortunately, I've gone through many choreographers over a great length of time. This is my 60th year, by the way, and so I have. Yeah, I don't believe it. But I went through the Jack Coles and people in all kinds of choreography. Up to now, I'm working with young Kate Weir, you know, and Desmond Richardson and all the young. I keep yourself young. You always go around the young folk because it keeps you moving. And but then you kind of. I tell you, I worked with Josephine Baker. And Josephine said, you know, it's wonderful when you see her. She had that little tiny voice, goes way up there, and then all of a sudden it's down here in later time. You have to keep. She said you have to keep up with the times. She always changed with the times, and I learned from that. You know, you never stay in the past. You just of course she would always sing "Je deux amours." That's her signature piece. But she would always keep up with the times and the songs, and she got herself in those real jazzy costumes and whatnot because she felt that she's not of the past. She's of the present. You see, and you learn, and all the things, you know, I think kids are really lucky today because they can go in anybody's territory, which is really wonderful. And I'm glad to see that. And I think we all learn from it. I learned from it. I'll take from it. I don't care, as long as it's good.
Well, I think that's the issue, as long as it's good. That's right. And that's one of the things that's, for me, I mean, there's a lot of people who are players who play straight ahead jazz or bebop, and that's all they want to do. That's fine. Or there are people who come to me who have said, I love you with Tommy Flanagan, but why would you play with Jack DeJohnette? I don't like him. And it's I said, well, that's kind of absurd, because when I play with Tommy, I play with Tommy, and when I play with Jack, I play with Jack. That has been my career of being able to sustain some kind of freshness, because if you stay in the same vein all the time, you will get bored with yourself. And one of the problems with me, the reason I have whatever notoriety I do have, most of those people are dead. So what do? I mean, think about that. I mean, she's talking about the experiences of her life, and you can't take that away from people. It's there. So if probably the most important thing is the work ethic of the people who are living today, who are young, and they want to do the different styles. They have to work harder in order to jump in it and be appreciated by those people. Otherwise, you know, you stay away. So that to me is the big fence for the people, for the good people and the mediocre players and dancers or whomever.
I've had two epiphanies, and the second one is tonight. Some 30 years ago, I went to a Sufi exhibition, and they were all moving back and forth, and I said, well, I could do that too, and I started doing that, and for 30 years now, I've been following that Sufi movement. And this afternoon, I've gotten another epiphany, thanks to you all guys, and that's music ants, which is, I closed my eyes also, just before you invited everybody, and I started to dance to the music. And now I have another vehicle for my transformation, is music ants. So thank you. Music ants.
Good word.
A combination of music ants.
He made a word.
Okay, I'm just wondering if it's working. One thing that I should stand. Oh, okay. One thing that I wonder about is how amazing it is that you put music on and you can dance to it and create something out of, you know, just musical notes, and your body does really react to it, not only your body but your mind and everything. So I do feel like it is an extension. I mean, like when I hear music and if I want to dance to it, I mean, I don't know how it happens. I'm just wondering. It's incredible that you start creating, and you know, you become one with the music. And it made me think that it's a dialogue. I mean, you have a dialogue with yourself when you dance to music yourself. You're by yourself, so you're having a dialogue with it. And then when you have other people, other dancers or other musicians, it becomes richer and richer, and it evolves. And it's, you know, I'm just thinking of all the therapeutic value of music and how authentic it is when you dance. You know, you dance with somebody, you really get to know that person. And in a way that it's very hard in a conversation. You know, there's so many formal, you know, codes that you have to follow. But when you dance, it's really freeing. And, you know, I look at you guys dancing and you look happy. So I think that dance should be such an integral part of our education. I mean, babies, when they're born, they dance. So what happens to us as we get older, we get more serious. And I'm a psychologist, but I want to become a dance therapist because I think that it's so amazing. And also I love to dance, so I thank you for this wonderful experience.
Thank you. Andrea, I'm wondering if you know what Merce's rationale was for teaching the dances without the music. And I assume he choreographed to music, but then, no? I'd like to know.
So he did in the beginning. When he left Martha, because he danced with Martha Graham, he did create pieces to music. So we actually currently do a couple of those pieces. They're still a little loose. I mean, it's not note for note for the most part. But then he met John Cage, and John Cage became partner collaborator, and that's it. I mean, they created this idea of doing everything separately, you know, and what would happen then. So he created movement. I can't speak for him, but from my little experience of working with him, he created movement for individuals. He was very into choosing his company members for who they were as people and creating whatever inspired him about what they brought. And he liked to give steps in class that people would do differently. He liked extremes. He liked rhythms. So a lot of it is based in 3, 4, 5, 6. You know, we have, within one piece, you could be doing many different rhythms. And then the music came later. It was being created separately, you know, and John would have different ideas about a piece and the sound for it, you know, and there were different composers as well. And that still takes place today, even after, well, Merce's gone, but when John died, that idea was set. And that has what happened afterwards as well with all the new creations. And, you know, sometimes they worked better than others, and they were willing to take that chance. I think it was part of the process creatively for him, you know. Rauschenberg and, you know, all of those guys, you know, they were really, really, really into it. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's really fascinating, and it's become addictive. You know, it's like it's really fun to do the work this way, and it's fun to have the other experience as well. But you know, we have our own narrative and our own dialogue and our own, even though we have set steps for the most part, it's ever changing because of that, because the music is always a little bit different. There is kind of a spontaneity about doing the work that I love, so.
Somebody back here had a question. This is a good one, Andrea. This is for Andrea as well, and maybe you partly answered it already, but see, I'm under the impression that when you work with Merce, it's almost the opposite of what this whole day was about, which is the dialogue between and the changing improvisation with the music and the dance. And yet you are not doing a solo. You have a lot of dancers, and you can't change your numbers or your steps according to the music that you hear.
Yeah, wait, I'm not sure that I will answer this. So it is very different. Like, we don't get on stage and improv to the music. You know, when
You can't even react to it.
Oh.
Why changing?
Well, not changing the movement, but the intention to the movement. There's definitely, you know, timing. You know, if depending on the piece. So there's a little bit of that. I mean, it's certainly not an improv space where we're all seeing what will happen next. And oftentimes the musicians also have composed music. There might be rules within that. We also have certain pieces that there is a little bit of chance within the music, the movement and the music, so there can be differences. You can go within 3 3s to start the next material, or you can choose to not go, you know, those types of things. So chance does show up in the work, but definitely not like this.
You almost have to ignore it, right? Because you haven't heard the music in advance.
Well, that's the dancer's choice, though.
Oh, you are? Were you allowed to?
I mean, like if I'm doing a solo, say, you know, and it's a Cage piece, and I choose, I mean, I still have to go from point A to point B da ba ba or whatever. But if I choose to stay here longer, I can. You know, it's not like there's I have. Yes, yeah, thank you. It's hard to, because I still have to do the steps that I was given. Yeah. Now, if the group is doing fielding sixes, which is 10 minutes of all sixes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, they should try to dance together. I mean, the goal is to dance together. And the music is crazy, and it doesn't have any rhythm, and it goes against the sixes, and the idea is for them to stay in the six. It doesn't always happen, but it's supposed to. So it depends on the piece, the time period, and how many people are on stage. But it is choreographed.
I have a simple question. In that, when did you decide to use the chairs and the rolling chairs?
It came out of a piece that Jane and Joe Gravazzi and I did for City Center, and Rufus was there. It's called The Fifth Wheel. Hence the wheels on the chair. And I think I was in that thing. I didn't want to, jump around legs for a whole piece. And I said, I will sit in a chair and roll. And it became this whole piece. And next thing you know, Jane's sitting in the chair, and I'm rolling Jane around, and I'm flying all. I mean, it became quite a thing. And doing all these solos with each of the quartet. It was with Jane's quartet, and it became quite on the stage of the City Center. It was quite large, and it became a very special piece. It was partially choreographed and partially improvised. You have to choreograph a certain amount of things, but there was places where you can leave open to play, and so when came here, is that your idea, Joe? The chairs. Yeah, I should have known.
In a confined space.
Yeah.
It's a weird object, the chair, but you can move. You could be moving perfectly wonderfully in it and never going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's what's going to happen here.
Hence the chairs.
A confined space, Carmen. We thought, we had to improvise with a very unusual setting here, confined space. Chair seems interesting.
Well, that's the good thing about improvising. I mean, if you said that you're going to be right here, you're going to have to do everything right here. It was very interesting. I went to see Louis Black the other night, comedian, and who was it? John Bowman. He'd never been on a stage that big. And here's this one person, and all he did was walk around the stage talking and doing his comedy and running back and forth all over the stage because he was fascinated with the space. And I'm sitting there, isn't that wonderful? And he used the space beautifully. But he was fascinated. He'd never been in a space that big. I'm used to big spaces, but it was fascinating to see a person just let loose and the wonderment of all this space around them. So, well, he's a master at his art, but it doesn't matter whether it's a tiny place where you have to stand still, which sometimes I have to do when I do the creation. I've done it at St. John the Divine up in the pulpit, and I'm not going anywhere. I just do my arms. You see, but so you adjust, and that's the beauty of just adjusting. Is really good. It frees you, it gives you a sense of like you're in charge of yourself. It could be, you just say, well, let go and just trust yourself. It's a great deal of trusting oneself.
I'm a classically trained flute player who has recently taken up the soprano sax. And I've done a lot of Alexander work. And for those of you who are not musicians, Alexander technique with musicians is to try to get you to move without causing trauma to yourself. And when I see Jane play, I know she's never caused any trauma to herself because she moves in a very relaxed way. But I know a lot of classical musicians have, I don't know whether it's the training of classical musicians, but I play in a flute ensemble, and I've even been told when I cut people off, with the flute, that I shouldn't move my whole body. I should just move the flute. And I think it's extraordinary because I think this thing with, maybe it's because I'm playing the saxophone now, but movement would be extremely beneficial to most classical musicians. Now, some of them, I understand, have developed tics. And if you've ever gone to see a solo musician and they're doing something weird and it distracts from the music and all you see is the tic. I'm not talking about that, but I think it would be incredibly beneficial. Some kind of...
Well, if it's an extension of your body, which it normally is, you can't help but move a little bit. I think the most wonderful thing... I'll shut up. I saw these. It was African. Yeah, I know. Company of Evening of African Dancing, and all of a sudden, out came these women with drums, and usually you see the men with the drums. Well, I want to tell you, it was a whole different thing. They got with the drums, and the hips are going, and they're beating the drums, and it was a whole different experience. They had their whole bodies were, the men are usually, pretty, they were all over the place. It was the most exciting thing I've ever seen. I couldn't believe it, because just their attitude toward the instrument, I guess. They were part of the instrument. And the instruments were all round, and they were round, and everything was round. It was wonderful. But I found that quite interesting, where the men were more steady and the women were looser with it. But that's an extent. Well, I guess the men, the ladies are curvy. And I think it's true. Working, I know choreographically, working with men, the movement's different than working with a woman. It's really quite interesting. And one has to adjust to those things, and that's the lovely thing about working with. Yeah.
I think we have to end, Carmen, because you have to go.
I know.
I guess this will be the last one.
Well, thank you. I think what you're saying is that the men have been doing it traditionally and affirmatively for a long time, and the women are latecomers. And a latecomer can sometimes open something up in a way that the traditional is expected, and the group is supposed to behave in a certain way.
Depends on which culture.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing that I'll give you all homework. Is that if ever you're tired, or you're troubled, or you're not feeling good, or you just want to get mad or something, you know what you do? You turn on the radio. I don't care what it is. Get some music. Put down the shades so maybe your neighbors don't look at you, and you just let go. And it's the most wonderful way of getting yourself. When you're troubled or anything, turn the music on and let the body go, because all your troubles settle in your body, in all kinds of places. And when you just let go, close your eyes, you don't care, don't think about it, let the music go. I don't care if it's rock and roll or whatever it is, doesn't matter. Is let go. That's your homework, and try that out this evening.
How are you? Good to see you.